Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet Live on ETV Live on Nisim 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You're welcome here. If it's not a fact, we don't discuss them. And so tonight, if we are here, what do we have on our table to discuss? We are talking the law and the protection of your fundamental human rights as captured by the 1992 Constitution. A test case for us this evening, for us to base our conversation on, has to do with the controversy that is brewing in the Ashanti region, which has to do with the leader and founder of the UPP, Akwesi Ade Odike, that the traditional rulers in the Ashanti region are banished by the screaming headlines that we read this week when we all came back from the weekend as a result of comments that he's supposed to have made that the traditional rulers or leaders in the Ashanti region found unpalatable, and thus decided that he was going to be banished from the Menchia Palace. This has generated a lot of concern for both students of law and all of us as to what our rights are and what the Constitution stipulates when it comes to the Chieftaincy Act, customary laws and practices within areas we find ourselves in, and the protection of our rights. And I'll try to read to you what the Constitution says when it says that all persons shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, which shall include freedom of the press and other media, freedom of thought, conscience, and belief, which shall include academic freedom, freedom to practice any religion and to manifest such practice, freedom of assembly, including freedom to take part in processions and demonstration. It goes on to talk about every freedom that we all are entitled to. It says every person is entitled to enjoy, practice, profess, maintain, and promote any culture, language, tradition, or religion subject to the provisions of this Constitution. All customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of a person are prohibited. And so based on the 1992 Constitution, tonight we'll try to have an appreciation of the law to understand what it means when it says that all customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of a person are prohibited. And so we ask, considering our traditional setup, where chiefs can call citizens within their lands and sanction them. Sometimes in our local parlance, we would say that Yamane Trejain and Nase Ebia Yetrenesu. We've been saying this. Can these laws and customary rights be performed under the 1992 Constitution, which prohibits these things from happening? On the back of this, we would want to find out whether the decisions which have been taken by the chiefs in Ashanti region would hold in terms of banishing Mr. Ade Odike from the Menchia Palace. That forms the basis for our conversation tonight on Fact Sheet. We'll take you back as to the comments he made which triggered the pouring of libation and the slaughtering of a goat and then the banishment from the Royal Palace. All these and more coming your way tonight on Fact Sheet. Do stay with us. And welcome back to Fact Sheet Live on ETV Live on Nisim 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So to set the tone for us this evening with our conversation, I would want for us to take a listen to the comments by Akwesi Ade Odike, which triggered all that we are about discussing tonight and the reactions after when he had been banished and his office ransacked by some individuals who sought to attack him. And as we have the information now, the Ghana Police Service is investigating that matter as we speak. So let's take a look back as to the comments that triggered all this.
You better ask.
I took a call from Menchia more, and I'm a message in her echo. Nana, Mutemi Munteni. sa osade ma prempen mu ejaye nsase ne kwaye wona nanom a omu ubeto mu jaye oman no yensuo de bibia intact me ka santimam ko santimam de yenya ye bomba ko na ye de ohene ba ko ato ano na de wa mo ye hwe ha pa ma yensuo ne ye kwaye ne ye bibia free ensei nana ti se nyame eto ne safre wa e de na akoka kire se o sa de ma me pacho me pacho allow me
just give me 1 minute of your time me be mo wasi nyabotre grow I fear the also we a penny
asa me come
it's a petition nyabotre
me pacho allow me
I will allow you but listen to me please your excellency listen to me what was it I'm nyabotre me no the nyabotre your excellency nyabotre was efficacy mu de we a penny chem wo tia mamre you know entinu fikasi mu de ya address you straight that sir na penny bi ka chem say nana mental radio you guys me chi otu for there because yishira nana yesre nyame yishira man ye nchia no radio so entinu enyame na metro wunim mo de so you know what ya mamre ti aha entinu eya ne wonya
eya me nwanwa ye pa say environment na ye wo no nana se ni nyina say ye nya ba bi ye be wu yentimi nsom when the last tree dies, the last man dies. Sure. And our official or no prema obia me galam say oh any territory. Papa every more against you know. Politician
that you galam say official.
Yeah. I know me so revolving at say and chuma. Manso and I know
Manso de nra kra me.
But there too of fast house e nipa begu bosome frɛ ho.
Are you sure?
Yes. About TV so nyina. Anti info. Yeah subjects. Yes so mo. Eti ase da pa ne say. Mo be gya o man na ma ye ne atu o man nu. Ye hura man sa. O te kokko so menhia de tia de mo fra no pa ne say. Officer yin nko aka say me importe mempene e me nya galamse. E ya djuma be si so wuye. Mo tete man wuye amasa abo awura officer and enke. Otu fa ma yin na ahwase o. Eti ade amoya asantment ye. Wunya kwanya na mo ne amanofo kasa. Na mo yi mo hu frim. Ba da de mo hyemu bi. Kaye nkodu ba bia ya dure. Awre wo asase ba kwanya kopon de ma e. Eti na mo penso de mo de ye ni. Mama ni pa ya mo bossa yen sase ni mfudi anya sai yare pa isana ane na sefo ade sa ya diska mo pe no mo pe dia ya de eti wiase pa eti benfo ya de awura hye mu ntide mu eni
woni gratitude ke as I said no
me hye man sori a me se me stage demonstration tiamo se munyi mu bi aka de akosoro kan ko me bossa te mama me buru to boy me bossa te mama buru to boy ama ya nyina ya temu so ntam skoko because I want ka ho ya ka ya ka munya ho hwe munya platform a mo yi agwa manofo so it's not true and I may catch them men shamu ni hu bi mo mra bonten na mo meche de ntamu ni hu bi se o here pa mo da ya no na obi frinka no be say nsuo no okọ obi frinka no be tu okọ agu no okọ obi frinka no be say ba nche no okọ uradi yankopon to ma be pa dia be firi mu eti mo nwe ya ho kakra kwa se mo te kokko so a yate ba kokko no nko ntimi ntra so woni ni pa da te kokko no so ni akoro me se anche mo be te menka me ba organize choboy sama no for kwa na wo mo ne bone a me shaka so mpre na me share issue statement say wo hina me chew say obi aba wasa so be garam se bi no obedi hwe
me say nansen ya krura koke university what say okay
oh masa ana mo be no matu and I west after KUST eti mi hu ne say oba o metu futu na gu yani no action okasa okakasa no wo ho ni nyinara ya da so say yensa nana asantema de na me de ma no ebi me ka hu bi mo o mo ba na sare na ti o eti mo be say na akọ ba ku fu hu nyanti o ya ku po hu ya mo bo sagana e bo ni bi kura na empenfo a o mu en respect kroma no mu fa ni de ma kroma no munya hihye ya kroma ho beto no onyankopon firi soro na be boa emu bia ye dwene Ghana ho no na dia santema akro no ye ne akikire ma
eno nsema odike ventures ana ha say Mr. Akwasia ade a dodo na afre no odike atu dwa one of FM station wo Kumasi a o kasa ya chese ni kasa ni mu no timi se na.
And welcome back. And those are the comments that Mr. Kwesi Adeodike made. He is the founder and leader of the UPP party that has gotten him in trouble. But is he really in trouble with the comments that he made? And can he really be banished as the headlines carried them yesterday and today? That's what we are trying to understand this evening as to what the position of the 1992 Constitution is when it comes to the rights of individuals and how they are to be protected, regardless of religion, regardless of tradition, regardless of tribe. And so that's what we are trying to, make sense of as to whether in this modern day and age with the 1992 Constitution, whether somebody can be banished from a city, can be banished from a city, can be banished from a village where, the person lives. And so to help us make sense of the conversation tonight, we will be joined on the phone lines by private legal practitioner, lawyer Benjamin Techi Antiedu, and also Kweku Dako Ankra, who is a historian and researcher at the University of Ghana, so they may throw more light on this matter which we are discussing. And if viewers and listeners would remember, this is not the first time that Odike is making such comments. He made similar comments in 2021. He made similar comments in 2015, 2016, thereabouts. And it all had to do with the protection of the environment. And that anger where it's stemming from has to do with how Galamsey is destroying our environment and his wish that people in authority, people vested with power, would work hard to ensure that our environment is protected. Viewers at home listening to these comments, what are your reactions to the comments that Mr. Odike made and the steps that have been taken by rulers and traditional authorities in the Ashanti region? Let's quickly hit the phone lines and seek the thoughts of private legal practitioner, lawyer Benjamin Techi Antiedu, so that he can explain from the point of view of the law for us this evening. Lawyer, it's good to have you tonight on the show.
Same here, my brother. Good evening, and good evening to your listeners and viewers.
All right. So I know you've been following the matter of Odike and the fact that we're being told that he's been banished from Menchia Palace. Now, what we want to understand is the position of the law when it comes to these traditional sanctions when they are taken. What does the Constitution say about such matters?
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very important discussion. You know, the Constitution has guaranteed our chieftaincy institution and our customary practices. So chieftaincy is part and parcel of our governance system and in our daily lives in our communities. But the Constitution has also established a formal governance system. So it means that the original powers of chiefs as governors of their communities have now been taken over by the formal governance system. So now you have the executive headed by the president, the legislature, and then the judiciary. So, and the Constitution goes ahead to also set out a number of rights that every citizen of Ghana should enjoy. A key one that is expressed under Article 14 of the Constitution is right to personal liberty, movement. Okay, so then you want to look at the entirety of the law, vis-a-vis even the Chieftaincy Act, and see the scope or the limits of the powers of our traditional authorities. So once the law is silent on it, that means they can do it. The law will only tell you what you cannot do. So the law establishing, or guaranteeing our chieftaincy institution and all that also has given powers of the individual, every Ghanaian, to have the right to move to anywhere he wants, except the part that will also impair the privacy of another person. So for things like, banishment, that you are banished from a certain community, that cannot happen in our time. Because the individual cannot be banished from his hometown unless by law. And so maybe by court order, your right to movement may be restricted, or you may be arrested. You may be by court order, you can be sent to court and all that. And then the court can even say, "I'm taking your passport. You can't even travel out of the country and all that." But apart from that, or maybe there's a communicable disease, and then for that alone, the law or maybe some legal action has been taken to put you aside so that you don't infect others. So for banishment, you cannot, especially from a community. But let's say we have to distinguish a chief's palace or the Otunfo's palace, for example. That is not a pure public facility, where every citizen has a right to enter. This is the residence, and then that is controlled by the Otunfo or other persons that he has authorized, to give authorization for people to visit there. So he can actually tell you not to come there as a form of sanction. But say in your community that we are declaring you persona non grata, you cannot step there. That will not fly will fly in the face of the law, because the Constitution, it will clash with the constitutional right of the individual to movement. And that definitely will be problematic, because our customary laws are inferior laws when you compare to the Constitution. So if there's any inconsistency, then the constitutional provision is the one that will apply. And then let me also add that, this question you are asking has also baffled our Supreme Court. Not long ago, the Supreme Court had to determine whether a chief can sanction you if he summons you and you don't go. And remember, there was an Asari case where the court said, even when you are summoned by a chief, you may go or you may not go. You can decline it. It's only when you submit to the authority, as example in the case of dispute settlement, then they have the power to settle disputes under customary arbitration, which the law recognizes. So that one person will definitely go to the chief and submit that petition. So if you also go through the process to submit yourself, then later you can't say you won't respect the decision that decision will be binding on it. But apart from that, you cannot be banished from your own community in Ghana here without law.
So what can chiefs do and what cannot do in a community or in a setup where we respect customary rights, and the 1992 Constitution also respects the Chieftaincy Act? What can they do and what cannot they not do?
In terms of the citizens or the subjects of
in terms of the administrative powers of chiefs.
Yeah, so that's why generally I've said that they can do all things unless they are prohibited by law, or unless once the law gives other protections, like here the law protects the rights of a person to movement. So you cannot take any measure that will restrict that. But apart from that, like your palace, like I said, palace is not a classical form of a public facility, like a parliament, like a hospital. So the person who has total control of the place can restrict you. I'm not sure that within West Palace, anybody at all can just walk there. At least you need some form of accreditation or permission. So that one you can be restricted. But let's say nobody can say you can't go to Confanatic Hospital. you get me? That is the difference. So the chiefs can do everything because they have that power. But once it clashes with any law, that means they can't do it. That's why I always say that you can do anything unless the law says you cannot do it. So they should just respect the change, the new paradigm. Pre-colonial and even during the colonial era, when our chiefs were used as indirect rulers under the indirect rule, they had total powers. All the governance powers that we have in this country, executive powers, legislative, and judiciary, they were, having all of them. So they were so powerful. And now former systems of government have taken over. So there's a real class. And that is why I'm saying that even when somebody was punished for not responding to the chief summon, the Supreme Court said, no, you can't compel somebody to be subject to that, because that's not a court. And so it clashes with the right to movement. So you can decline, and nobody can do anything to you. But we should also ensure that we are Ghanaians first and foremost. And our cultural heritage and practices are what make us different. And so as much as possible, we should respect our chieftaincy institutions. But whenever they go in aberration of the law, then we should point that one out. We are trained to respect our elders. So for our chiefs, we revere them. So even when they are not right, there's a way you go about it. You don't go challenging and wrestling power. That is not right.
Now, there are instances, and we are having this conversation because of the case in point which has to do with ODK, but there are instances where you have had chiefs, as much as the 1992 Constitution, vest certain powers in the Interior Minister to declare a curfew, a time people must sleep and a time which they must not sleep. We have instances where certain chiefs can say that within this period, as a result of this which has happened, people cannot move. Is that not all part of the restrictions that we are talking about? And again, there have been instances where, let's say, there is some kind of argument between one tribe and the other, and then let's say one in the Ashanti region, one in the Greater Accra region. There is someone here who has made a comment that people in the Ashanti region feels disrespects their chief, and so they say that, let's say, Sami Eshen cannot come to the Ashanti region. And we have had instances in our history where people have told certain individuals that you can't come to our region, or you can't even pass through our region to go to your own region. What's the position of the law on these?
And that's what I said. We all come back to the right to movement. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. So if you're a citizen, you feel like your ethnic group has been, affected by somebody's comments, you take the necessary steps, legal, judicial steps. You cannot take the law into your hands and say somebody cannot come to your region. It's part of Ghana. The Constitution gives the person the right. The person cannot come to your region and enter your home, for example, because that one will clash with your right to privacy. But where it will not result in that, you cannot. You cannot. The law doesn't permit you to do that. And then if you go ahead and do something to that person, or let's say you stop that person, or you arrest him, or whatever, that is forced imprisonment. The person can sue you and get compensation out of it. You may also be maybe entering into criminal assault, which you can be prosecuted and imprisoned. So what I'm saying is that this is the time, a wake-up call for us to have a real discussion and determination of the powers of our chiefs in terms of enforcing orders and all that. You may even extend it to, let's say, Homo, for example, where there is a ban on drumming and dancing, and there's invasion of churches and all that. You can't invade a church because that right is also protected. Okay, but like I'm saying, as we all live in communities, as we are all Ghanaians first and foremost, before our rights came, or before we started enjoying formal rights, we should, as much as possible, live peaceably with everyone, so that it's not every matter that is resolved legally. The law may be there, but like I say, if before you go to court your neck is not there or your head is chopped off, how can the law protect you? So it's not everything that we fight legally, because the law recognizes that there are certain continuous relationships that, when it's broken, it's difficult for people to live at peace. But the foundational element of the Constitution is for all Ghanaians to live harmoniously with each other. So yes, the law does not permit some of these orders, but there's also a moral suasion or a moral obligation on us to respect our chieftaincy institutions and all that. But there must be a caution to people who would think that, their ethnic groups have been affected, so they will take the law into their hands. They are risking criminal and civil liabilities.
Now, these customary rights, like for instance, you just mentioned the ban on drumming and noise making, who should declare them?
Definitely. That is why you see that when it comes to holidays, when it comes to emergencies and others, those powers are circumscribed and specific authorities are named. So this one, like if it's a festival, then of course the custodian of the festival or the leader of that community is the one who will declare. But I'm saying that declaration doesn't have a legal effect. So it is people who live there who want to live harmoniously with others and tolerate all others who will respect that. But if the person fails to respect that, you can't go and say you are meting out, punishment to that person. No. don't have a right to mete out any punishment to anyone or impose any
But
punishment.
we have seen instances where people's churches' instruments are being confiscated, and virtually has the tacit approval of authorities, and it happens within the period.
Yes, so it's all about, but that's what I'm saying, that the law does not permit those things. But it's all like all of us, we want to respect our traditional authorities and some of our practices. So you see that the person who is to enforce the law is even inclined to respect what you are breaching. So it becomes difficult. Remember, they are Ghanaians first and foremost, they are human beings. And nobody wants to have a problem. Of course, the Ghan mancha is the one who, for example, let's say, has given you land to build your church. And he tells you, just give me a period not to make noise. Do you think that if you disobey this one, even though he cannot do anything with you, you can live happily with the person? No. You see, that is where our customary practices and traditions and systems and leadership clashes with our constitutional rights. And so you look at America and elsewhere, where they don't have some of these traditional systems, they are able to deal with some of these infractions head on. But ours is a mess system. So where do we place what? But what I'm saying is that legally, per my understanding of the law, you cannot banish somebody without law, without any judicial order.
All right. Now,
there's a duty on all of us to live harmoniously with each other and respect and revere our traditional authorities. So that is also there.
Now,
even though when there's a clash, then the law prevails.
I am looking at the Constitution, where it clearly stipulates that all customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of a person are prohibited. Still using the case in point of what's happening with Mr. Odike. Now, we are told that some people ransacked his office, some people attacked his office, and his car was shot into and all, from the accounts that we have heard. In this respect, or according to the Constitution, what remedies are there, seeing that even as we speak, Menchia has said that they have given a window for remedial steps to be taken to hear him, in the matter as it stands now. What options are available to him?
Yes, the options available to him are found under Article 33 of the Constitution, where even when your right is, there's a threatened breach of your rights. So your right to movement has been threatened. You can even go to court and indicate whoever has threatened your life not or do anything that will stop you. But like I said, after getting that, you come and live in the community. You get my problem. So even the protection that the Constitution is giving you, your mental stability and soundness. When you have that power, and now you are sleeping in your house, do you think you can sleep with your mental stability intact? That is why I'm saying that it's not everything that you're trying to tie according to the law. There are certain areas that compromises are reached, and then just to make sure that we live, in peace. That is all that I'm saying. The law is clear, and as you have even quoted, our traditional system, just we cherish them. And before the whites, when the whites started former administration, they even destroyed our customary rules. That those that are obnoxious. And then that determination was made by them. They were all rendered, ineffective. Okay, those ones that are even against morality and all that, they had so many descriptions. So of course, the Constitution follows that order, and it's part of the international order not to unduly, abuse human rights. So definitely, when you go on that tangent, you will win in court. But after winning in court, where will you live?
Okay.
You see. It's just like, Ghana, you cannot rape your wife and everything. Yes, you go to court, you get remedy, but who will you sleep with again? The person you took to court? There are certain compromises that the law cannot resolve. It's not everything that is resolved by law. So we should acknowledge that. But legally, it will not be right to banish anybody without law or a judicial order.
Interesting lawyer, we thank you for your views tonight. We'll take a short breather. When we come back, we'll engage a historian to seek perspectives on this matter as well. Do stay with us.
Of these shops. So as soon as they got out, I went into a proper hiding. They came back and they couldn't find me again. Then they destroyed the vehicles here and moved it away.
So does this put you in any form of fear?
Although physically, yes, I've been traumatized, but God is with me.
But do you regret making those statements?
Never, because I've been vindicated by the actions of the tax from the election.
No, are you apologizing to Malaysia anytime?
People who are after my life. How can I apologize to them? They want to kill me. So why do I go before my knees and beg them? That portion is past and gone. No reconciliation. The battle line has been drawn. I have to take good care of myself and see how the police will assist me in terms of security.
Now,
of these shops. So as soon as they got out, I went into a proper hiding. They came back and they couldn't find me again. Then they destroyed the vehicles here and moved it away.
So does this put you in any form of fear?
Although physically, yes, I've been traumatized, but God is with me.
But do you regret making those statements?
Never, because I've been vindicated by the actions of the tax from the election.
No, are you apologizing to Malaysia anytime?
People who are after my life. How can I apologize to them? They want to kill me. So why do I go before my knees and beg them? That portion is past and gone. No reconciliation. The battle line has been drawn. I have to take good care of myself and see how the police will assist me in terms of security.
Welcome back to Fact Sheet Live on ETV Live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1. We're having a conversation trying to have an appreciation of the Constitution's position when it comes to chieftaincy matters and our fundamental human rights as citizens and inhabitants of communities that we live in. And case in point is the situation that Mr. Odike finds himself in, where Menchia Palace virtually has banished him from the Menchia Palace. And from the lawyer's point of view, he says that when you are summoned by any traditional ruler, per the 1992 Constitution, you have a right to decline that invitation, and you have a right to also go. But it is the courts which have that right vested in them to decide your fate as to being subpoenaed on a matter which has been brought before them. And we're trying to establish how the Constitution clarifies as to issues that we can describe and classify as dehumanizing when it comes to your rights and the responsibilities as a citizen. And the 1992 Constitution, Article 26, says that all customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of a person are prohibited. And we contextualize the conversation as well to bring it to even here in Accra, where the ban on drumming and noise making takes effect, and then churches are not allowed to play their drums and all. And it says that, look, in the interest of cohesion, in the interest of cohabiting, it's important that as much as the law does not bar them from engaging in their usual drumming and noise making and dancing in the churches, it's in our own interest to also respect these rules of traditional authorities and rulers where we find ourselves. And on that note, quickly, we will jump, to the phone lines and see if we've been able to raise Mr. Dakwankra. Well, we have not been able to reach him, but let me read a few comments that have come through tonight for our viewers and listeners. And this one from Mashaluta Lama, who is watching us, says, "Hi, good evening, and good evening to you as well. And thanks for joining us tonight." Ohima Papa B is watching us tonight, and she says, "Thanks for your help. I'm really enjoying the conversation." Kwabena Amwako is also watching us tonight on Facebook, and he says, "Hi," and hi back to you. I see Joanna Afibio. I hope I got the pronunciation of your name correct. And she says that I am enjoying the conversation, very informative, and people must know their rights when it comes to the localities that they live in. Some of these chiefs are really, really sitting on our happiness. Interesting point you make there. Now, this one from Kwabena Abebio, he says, "Sammy, can you help me? Are there chiefs and are there kings?" Okay, that's an interesting one. You wanted me to have asked the lawyer for you from the perspective or position of the Constitution. But unfortunately, I am done with the lawyer. Let me read two more comments and then that would be it. This one says something. So, are you saying that if I live in a community and someone takes me to the chief of that area on a domestic issue, I can decide not to go if I'm summoned by the chief? Well, from the position of the law, yes, you can decide not to go. It's only the courts that can summon you or subpoena you for any matter. But it doesn't also mean that the Chieftaincy Act, you as an individual cannot take your matter or your issue to a local ruler or authority to intervene or arbitrate in a matter for you. Remember that we discussed last week on the Happy Morning Show the ADR option, which is there, alternative dispute resolution, mechanisms that are there for you to resolve issues within your locality. And so if you have an issue with somebody that you feel that you want your chief to intervene, you can go and see the chief in your area. Even an elderly person in that community can intervene in that matter. And if the two of you agree for that individual to arbitrate in that matter, a resolution can be sought in that matter. And so these are all issues that we should avert our minds to. But on that note, I would like to thank every one of you for being a part of our discussion tonight, where we try to make sense of the law, our traditions and customs, and our respect for authority, traditional authority for that matter. I thank you once again, and I wish you a pleasant evening. Good night.